Hi everyone, how are you? Listen, I want to talk to you a little bit today about how important public speaking is and also why it's critical that you meet the audience requirement for these assignments. So let's get started. First of all, now I can handle the truth. How many people, how many of you hate public speaking? Raise your hand. Okay. And how many people don't hate it, but you're not in love with it? Okay. And how many people know that you need to get better at it? Okay, that's everybody, right? Because the thing is, an old definition of public speaking was giving a presentation behind a podium, very stiff, talking at your audience, and just being a little dry. Well, that's old school. A newer definition of public speaking is anytime you're communicating with someone else. Anytime. All right, you return something to Target without a receipt, that's a public speech. You have a job interview, public speech. You ask someone out on a date, public speech. So how many of you have already given a public speech today? Raise your hand. Right? So they were successful. The thing is, so often with public speaking, people who hate public speaking don't like it because they're nervous. And so they're equating the fact that they're nervous with the fact that they can't do it, or they're not doing it right, or they're not good enough. And that's just not true. You can be very nervous and be excellent at something. So for some of you that are athletes, or some of you who are performers, or you're dancers or singers, think about when you're in rehearsal. You feel good, right? And then when you're in performance, you have butterflies in your tummy. That's anxiety, right? A little bit of anxiety, some anticipation. You're getting ready to perform. There's an audience out there. It's perfectly natural. So in my classes, I rarely tell people to work on fear. That goes away the more you do it. So if you're a dancer and you have anticipation right before you go on stage in front of an audience, you get used to that feeling. It's a part of it. The same thing happens with public speaking. It's just that so many people are avoiding giving a public speech, so they can never kind of get over that nerve hump. So what I'm saying to you here is that the best thing you can do for your professional success is become a better communicator. It's true. Now, the way I think a great speech feels is conversational, that you are connecting and having a conversation with however many people are in your audience. So technically speaking, in our assignments, you have just one or two people or three people in the room. But if you imagined that you were speaking to an entire class of people, it might give you a little something else to focus on. I don't want you to look at it like this, that you're here, the camera is there, and it's all very separate. I want you to imagine that you're sitting in a class and that you stand up to give your speech, or you're in a conference room and you're hosting a meeting. If you're thinking about people in the room, it can help you to become a little bit more conversational and not so stiff and presentational. Now, you're thinking to yourself, how can I have a conversation with people when they're not speaking? Well, the fact is that 85% of all communication is nonverbal. So you are having a conversation with people. When I'm in class, I know if people are like squirrel thinking about lunch, they don't want to be there, they didn't get their math homework done, they're sleepy. You can tell if you're dialed into your audience. And the magic here is that you have people sitting right in the room that you can connect with. And I want you to start thinking about the camera as another person. Imagine that I'm just sitting in the room and I'm listening to your speech. People that you know are listening to your speech. Maybe you take a picture of someone that you really care about, or one of your good friends, your significant other, or whatever, and you put it on top of your camera lens so that you are not speaking into a camera, but you're actually having a conversation with another person. When you do that, when you're just talking, it just relieves some of that pressure of like, I have to give a speech. Well, we don't want to hear a speech. Nobody likes speeches. Come on, we want to hear a conversation. We're here to see you shed some light on a topic, whatever that is. You're the star of the show. We're here for you. We're not here to see some old speech. Speeches are boring, but conversations with dynamic people, that's exciting, and people want to see that. So I want you to consider that. The other thing I want you to consider is that, active listening is the number one component to communication. It's the number one thing you have to be good at. And yet, how many of you have ever had a formal active listening class? None of you, right? Now, active listening is similar to critical thinking, right? You're processing all this information in a conversation, and then you're responding to each other. Like, you and I are having a conversation right now. You might say something that makes me laugh. I might say something that makes you cry. You might say, forget this class, I'm out of here, she's crazy. And even though that might be true, it doesn't mean I'm not right, okay? I'm right. Having a conversation is easier. But the fact is, only less than 1% of the population has ever been trained on how to do active listening. So doesn't it feel like we're being punked? The very thing we have to be good at is the thing that no one teaches how to do. And when you're giving a speech, all the preparation, okay, the writing of the speech, the practicing of the speech, that's all about you. But when you stand up, it's all about your audience. What are you doing for your audience? Are you teaching us something? Are you celebrating your friend in the special occasion speech? Are you introducing yourself to a group of new friends? See, it becomes all about the audience. And when you're thinking about it like that, like, how can I get my message across to you? It takes your focus off of yourself, and that will help release some of that anxiety. Now, this transitions a little bit to why on earth we have to have an audience. Look, sometimes students try to give me the pushback that it's just the same exact thing recording a video as it is doing in front of an audience. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No. If it was, you would have no problem going and taking that on-campus class, right? I gotcha, okay? You would have no problem going in and speaking in front of 30 people if it was exactly the same. Now, some of you are legitimately taking this class because you don't have time to go to campus. You've got kids and work and everything else. Some of you took the class because you thought you wouldn't have to have an audience. No shame in that. I'm not trolling you for that, but I'm just saying this thing about having an audience is incredibly important, because when you go give a speech, like a job interview, are you going to be alone recording a video? No. Now, you might end up doing a Skype interview, but getting very comfortable speaking in this artificial environment is incredibly important. Speaking in front of people is different. That's it. And one thing about the online classes is that we have to make a real effort to make sure that you're getting as much out of the online experience as you are if you'd come to my on-campus class. So in order to do that, you have to meet this audience requirement. You do. It is a big deal. So some of you are having trouble getting 1 and 2 people together, and that's one of the reasons why I've been pushing Zoom. Zoom is a way for you to still use the people in the room, but have other people log on when you're recording and watch you live. And that will help you meet the requirement. You got to plan ahead, or you've got to plan ahead. So if you want to schedule a Zoom, you can still have people come and sit in the room, but then you can let me know that you set up a meeting and I can put an announcement out. If I'm available, I'll come and sit in and watch and be an audience member. And we can get people to log on, your friends or someone from work or your boyfriend or your cousin or someone from class. And in fact, if a couple people want to schedule something, then we can all sit in on each other, be audiences for one another, and then you've met the requirement. 40% is a ton of points to lose when you actually have control of that outcome. And when you're learning something new, look, I'm not expecting perfection in every speech, but don't lose points in these areas. Time, you got to make the time. You have to make the time. Turning in a written speech, turning things in on time, and having the audience. Those are things that you can control that help build up the points in that part of the rubric. So the stuff that you're just learning about, you have some leeway. Like, control what you can, right? You want to try to get as many points as you can, but I'm going to cut 40% off your score if you don't have the audience requirement. It is a program requirement and you have to meet it. But like I said before, if you want to Skype with someone, if you're going to do FaceTime, if you're going to do Zoom, it's a great way for us all to access your speech when you're recording it, and you can meet the requirement. People will work with one another. My classes always work together to try to meet that requirement. So you need to dial that up for informative and persuasive, because they have a bigger requirement in the first couple of speeches, okay? So first of all, give yourselves a pat on the back. You are taking speech and you're getting that requirement done. Awesome, okay? It's a class that nobody wants to take. And they wait till the end, they take it a couple of times, but here you are, you're gonna finish. Okay, that's number one, good for you. Number two, Give yourself a pat on the back for being a better speaker than you think. Okay, if you're playing in the Super Bowl, you'd have anticipation. If you won an Academy Award and you're walking up there to give your acceptance speech, you would have anticipation. If you're asking that hot chick out on a date, you would have anticipation, okay? You would have these nerves if something was important to you. So it's nothing to be worried about. Scratch it off your list, okay? You're good. And not only that, you're good at public speaking. So when I'm grading, I'm looking at it, look, we all are good at some stuff in the speeches and we all have stuff to work on, all right? That's never ending. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I hope you will look at it from that perspective too. Practice, take it seriously, get organized so you don't have all that drama at the end when you can't upload your video, and what about Canvas, and oh, this happened, blah, blah, blah. Get it done. Get it done so it's less dramatic. Make sure you leave time for practice, and just know that it's all gonna work out, okay? So that's my little talk today about how important the audience is and what we're actually doing with public speaking. So I hope you take it to heart. Use my tips when you're going forward in the next couple of speeches. I'll see you on the discussion board, all right? All right, keep up the good work, everybody. Bye.